GLP-1 drugs are exploding in popularity because they solve one problem that has tortured millions of people for years: stubborn weight that refuses to move no matter how hard you try. And if you've watched someone start a GLP-1, the results can look almost magical. The cravings quiet down, portions shrink without a fight, the scale finally drops. But here's the catch: most people begin these medications knowing only one headline: it kills your appetite, and almost nothing about the deeper mechanism or the biological trade-offs that can come with long-term use. So today, we're not debating whether GLP-1s work. They do. The real question is, what is the cost to the body when you override survival biology, and what happens if some of those adaptations don't fully reverse? Hello, health champions. Today, we're going to talk about Ozempic-style GLP-1 drugs, and what may actually be happening inside your body when you take them, why they can be incredibly helpful for some people, why they can be risky for others, and why the biggest danger is thinking the absence of symptoms means everything is fine. This is educational information, not medical advice, and these decisions should always be made with your clinician, especially if you have diabetes, a history of GI issues, gallbladder problems, pancreatitis, or you're on other medications. Let's start with the basics, because the basics are where people get trapped. GLP-1 stands for glucagon-like peptide 1. It's a peptide hormone, meaning a chain of amino acids released primarily from specialized cells in your intestines after you eat. Think of it as one of the body's fed state messengers. When food arrives, GLP-1 rises and helps coordinate what happens next. It slows gastric emptying so the stomach releases food into the intestines more gradually. It helps smooth out the blood sugar response after meals, in part by supporting insulin secretion when glucose is present, and it sends signals to the brain that say, "We've eaten, we're safe, you can stop hunting." That stop hunting part is what most people feel as reduced hunger and fewer cravings. In nature, this is brilliant. It prevents overeating, it protects you from massive glucose spikes, it helps your gut extract nutrients efficiently. But notice what I just said. GLP-1 is designed to rise after food and fall between meals. It's a timing hormone. It's supposed to pulse, not stay elevated around the clock. Now here's where the modern world steps in with a chemical crowbar. GLP-1 drugs are agonists. That means they mimic GLP-1's actions at the receptor, but they're engineered to last much longer than your natural GLP-1 signal. Instead of a brief post-meal wave, you get a prolonged signal, sometimes a near-constant background message. And constant signals create adaptations. The body is not a machine that passively receives instructions. It's a living system that responds to repeated patterns by rewriting itself. When you repeatedly broadcast fed state signals while simultaneously eating less, you're sending mixed messages that your biology has to interpret. And your biology interprets everything through one lens first: survival. To understand why this matters, we need to zoom out and look at the other main actor in this metabolic story: glucagon. Glucagon is a hormone made in the pancreas by alpha cells, and it's part of a balancing system with insulin, which is made by beta cells. If insulin is the storage signal, generally rising when you eat, glucagon is the mobilization signal, generally rising when you haven't eaten. Glucagon's job is to keep your blood sugar stable between meals by telling the liver to break down stored glycogen and release glucose into the bloodstream. It also supports gluconeogenesis, which is the creation of glucose from non-carbohydrate sources like certain amino acids and glycerol. It helps the body access stored fuel, including fatty acids, so you can keep making energy when food isn't currently coming in. In simple terms, glucagon helps you function when you're not eating. It's one of your "we're fine, keep going" hormones. It's part of the reason you can go hours between meals without collapsing. It's part of metabolic flexibility, the ability to switch gears. So why is GLP-1 called glucagon-like if they do different things? Mostly because of structure, not function. Scientists originally named it based on molecular similarities in the peptide sequence and how it's produced from precursor molecules. But functionally, glucagon and GLP-1 often behave like opposites or neutrals depending on context. Glucagon is most relevant when energy is low and you need to mobilize. GLP-1 is most relevant when you're eating and you need to process and store appropriately. Glucagon doesn't exist to shut off hunger. It's relatively neutral there. GLP-1 suppresses hunger because it's supposed to show up right after food arrives, when hunger should naturally diminish. Glucagon doesn't slow your digestion. GLP-1 does, because it manages timing and nutrient flow. Glucagon supports access to fuel. GLP-1 supports a state that resembles conservation and post-meal handling. In the real world, it's all a dance. After a meal, GLP-1 rises, insulin rises, digestion slows, nutrients are absorbed over time. Between meals, GLP-1 falls, insulin falls, glucagon rises, and the body calmly draws from stored fuel. That rhythmic switching is a major part of what keeps humans resilient. The problem is not GLP-1 itself. The problem is what happens when we lock the system into one mode for too long. When you take GLP-1 as a long-acting drug, you're essentially pushing the body toward a chronic fed state signal while simultaneously reducing intake. That creates a paradox. You feel less hunger, but your body can still sense reduced incoming energy and nutrients. And when the body senses scarcity, it doesn't politely applaud your discipline. It protects itself. It can reduce energy output. It can shift what it's willing to spend. And it can choose to sacrifice things you care about, like muscle, performance, performance and metabolic rate, because in an ancient environment, the priority was not aesthetics or athleticism. The priority was staying alive long enough to reproduce. Now let's talk about the biological costs people rarely discuss clearly, and I want you to hear this the right way. This is not fearmongering. For many people, GLP-1 therapy can be medically appropriate and beneficial, but beneficial does not mean free. Every powerful intervention has trade-offs. The only question is whether those trade-offs are understood, monitored, and managed, or ignored until they become a surprise. The first cost is muscle loss and the quiet decline in metabolic engine size. When appetite drops, people often eat less protein without realizing it. They also often lose interest in exercise, especially resistance training, because fatigue can increase during rapid weight loss. And when weight drops quickly, some lean mass loss is common no matter what method you use. But here's what makes GLP-1 weight loss uniquely tricky. You can lose weight without hunger, but hunger is not the only signal that the body uses to defend itself. Your body can still interpret low intake as a threat. If protein and training aren't prioritized, the body may pull from lean tissue. Muscle isn't just for strength. Muscle is a metabolic organ. It is one of the most important places your body disposes of glucose. It's your reserve tank for illness and aging. It's the difference between being lighter and being more fragile. And the worst part is that muscle loss doesn't always feel dramatic day to day. It can happen quietly. You might just notice you're colder, weaker, less explosive, more tired, less motivated, and you think, well, I'm eating less, that's normal. But long term, this can change your baseline. The second cost is basal metabolic rate, downshifting, and rebound risk. The body adapts to reduced intake by becoming more efficient. It can lower spontaneous movement and non-exercise activity. It can reduce thermogenesis. It can become more conservative with energy. And then, when the medication is reduced or stopped and appetite returns, you may find that your metabolic machinery hasn't fully repaired. That's when rebound becomes likely, because the body is built to recover weight after a period of perceived scarcity. People often describe this as yo-yo dieting, but with GLP-1s, it can feel sharper because the contrast is stronger. On the drug, hunger is quiet. Off the drug, hunger feels loud, urgent, almost aggressive. If you never built new routines while the volume was down, if you didn't change the quality of your diet, your protein, your structure, your strength training, then when hunger returns, it's like the gates opening after a long hold. And the body doesn't just want to return to baseline, it often tries to overshoot because that's what survival systems do after scarcity. They rebuild reserves. The third cost is gut motility slowdown. This one is not mysterious, it's built into the mechanism. GLP-1 slows gastric emptying and slows aspects of GI transit because that's part of how it smooths the glucose response and increases satiety. In short bursts, after meals, that's normal physiology. But when this signal is chronically amplified, you can end up with chronic side effects: nausea, bloating, reflux, constipation, a sense of heaviness, and a stomach that just doesn't feel like it's moving normally. For many people, these symptoms are mild or transient and can be managed with dose adjustments and dietary changes. But for some people, the slowdown becomes more severe. And while the internet throws around scary words, the sober point is this: you are manipulating the nerve-driven rhythm of a complex organ system. The gut is not just plumbing, it's a network of nerves, hormones, and microbial ecosystems. If you slow the conveyor belt too much for too long, you can change the entire internal environment: how food ferments, how signals rise and fall, how feedback loops teach your brain what normal hunger even feels like. The fourth cost is nutritional deficiency risk, and this is one of the most underestimated because it doesn't always announce itself clearly. When you eat less, you get fewer building blocks. That includes protein, essential fatty acids, vitamins, minerals, electrolytes, and trace nutrients. And because GLP-1 can slow digestion, absorption patterns may shift as well. Early signs can be subtle: fatigue, hair shedding, weakness, dizziness, brittle nails, poorer recovery, mood changes. But the deeper concern is long-term. The body runs on catalysts. Enzymes require vitamins and minerals. Hormones require amino acids and fats. Tissue repair requires protein and micronutrients. If someone loses weight rapidly while unintentionally underconsuming essential nutrients, they might celebrate the scale while quietly undermining the foundation. The scary part is not "you'll feel sick tomorrow." The scary part is you might feel fine until the day you don't, because the body is excellent at compensating until it can't. The fifth cost is the signaling rebound: hunger, reward, salience, and dependency. Hunger hormones do not disappear. They are suppressed or overridden while the drug is active. But your brain and body are not stupid. They track patterns. They remember. And when you reduce or stop the medication, your system can overcompensate. People often describe an increase in food noise, cravings, and reward response. Food becomes more interesting again, sometimes intensely so. This isn't just weakness, it's biology. Your brain has reward circuits for a reason. In nature, finding food and eating it needed to be reinforcing. If that reinforcement is muted chemically for a long time, the return to baseline can feel like an overcorrection, especially if you haven't rebuilt stable habits. Over time, some people can feel like they've created a pharmacological dependency, not because they're morally failing, but because their environment and their biology are still the same. And the medication was the dam holding back the flood. When the dam lowers, the old river returns. Now here's the critical misunderstanding I want you to avoid. Many people assume that if they're losing weight without symptoms, it must be safe. But health doesn't always warn you with symptoms. symptoms. In many diseases, the first noticeable symptom is a crisis. A heart attack can be the first symptom of cardiovascular disease. Metabolic dysfunction can brew for years before someone feels it. The body compensates until it suddenly can't. That's why you should never use the absence of discomfort as the only measurement of safety when you're altering foundational systems like appetite, digestion, and metabolic signaling. So what should you actually think about GLP-1 drugs? Think of them as powerful tools that can create a window of opportunity, but windows don't build houses. A quiet appetite can give you breathing room. It can give you the mental space to finally change structure, choices, routines, and the food environment that has been driving the problem. But if you use the drug to keep eating the same ultra-processed, hyper-palatable foods, just in smaller amounts, then you may be treating the symptom while the root remains. And eventually, the body asks for payment. Sometimes the payment is muscle, sometimes it's energy, sometimes it's digestion, sometimes it's rebound, sometimes it's the mental exhaustion of realizing you never actually learned how to live in a way that your biology can maintain without constant suppression. Here's the truth that makes some people uncomfortable. You absolutely do have to change what you eat. Not because you're being punished, but because the original problem wasn't just too many calories. For many people, the problem was that modern food behaves like a drug. It spikes reward, it disrupts satiety signals, it keeps you grazing, it hijacks appetite beyond what your physiology evolved to handle. If you don't correct that, you're relying on a medication to outmuscle an environment that is still engineered to defeat you. That's not a plan. That's a temporary stalemate. If you're on a GLP-1 or thinking about it, the best framing is this. Use the medication to make better decisions easier, not to make bad decisions consequence-free. That means, at minimum, you're thinking about protein first, because protein protects muscle and supports satiety in a way that builds you rather than shrinks you. It means you're thinking about resistance training, or at least strength-preserving movement, because losing weight without preserving muscle is like shrinking the car's engine and then wondering why it can't climb the hill later. It means you're thinking about nutrient density because smaller meals must be higher quality, and it means you're monitoring not just weight but energy, strength, digestion, and overall function, because the goal is not simply a lower number. The goal is a healthier system. So is it worth it? For some people, yes, absolutely. Especially when the medical risk of obesity and diabetes is high, when other interventions have failed, and when therapy is supervised properly. But worth it is not a one-time answer. It's a relationship. It's a plan. It's a commitment to building a body that can eventually maintain health without needing to force silence on the very signals designed to protect you. Because hunger is not your enemy. Hunger is an ancient guardian. It exists because your species survived ice ages, droughts, famines, and winters that could kill you. That guardian can be too loud in the modern world, especially when the modern world is designed to provoke it. But if you shut the guardian down without rebuilding the environment and the habits, you may win a short battle and lose the long war. When you override survival biology, there are always consequences. The only question is whether you understand them, respect them, and build a strategy that makes the benefits real and the costs manageable. If you enjoyed this video, you're going to love the next one, because we're going to talk about how to restore metabolic flexibility, reduce food noise naturally, and rebuild a rhythm your body trusts. Subscribe, hit that bell, and turn on notifications so you never miss a life-saving video.